Hi everybody, Chris from Redshift here. I'm going to show you how to set shock length on the back of a coilover setup where you have the ability to change the shock length. Buddy Club N+, this is the D2, a lot of confusion about that. So, very simply the steps are, and I'm going to try to make this quick. When you have, now the spring is not installed, you can see that, right? See it moving? I have a jack down here. Let me show you that. So you see I have the jack down here. And this car is on a lift, which makes me one of the lucky guys. But I have a jack that with that blue board can put pressure on the underside of the suspension. You can do that with the car on the ground with a buddy. Your buddy can act as the jack. If you're strong enough, you can actually pull up on this. Makes it a lot easier to have a jack underneath it. That's how I do it. So anyway, install the lower mount. With the bolt in it, don't tighten it, and making sure that the piston is going through the hole it's supposed to be going to. What you want to do is compress, push the lower control arm up toward the bottom. You see when you do that, it moves see it's getting tighter and tighter? Okay, there it's sitting on it, but there's no preload on the spring. What I like to do is go 1/8 inch more, which I just did. And at that point, this is exactly the right amount of preload for that spring. And now, once that's done, you set the length of the shock. Now the way you set the length of the shock, I'm not sure you can see this very well, but there's a mount up here, or the mounting point up here. Actually, I have the other shock here. I'll show you. So on this D2, see there's got a D2 shock. On this D2 shock, at the very top, there's a mounting point which is defined by the little ledge, and there's a washer that sits right on top of that ledge. That's the upper mounting point of the shock. There's a little sleeve that goes on here. When you mount this up inside there, the bottom of the bushing, that black bushing that's right there, is going to rest right on top of this washer. So this washer becomes the upper mounting point. So back to this shock, the upper mounting point, that washer, as I lengthen the shock by unscrewing it from the bottom body here. You unscrew it, that washer, because the shock is lengthening, will move up toward the bushing. And there it's sitting right on the bushing. And that's where you want to set the shock. End of story. You tighten the lock ring, make sure that's good and tight. Don't go crazy on it, but make sure it's tight. And then install or put all the washer and the nut on. It's inside the trunk for the above the upper mounting point, above the top bushing. Tighten it down. The top nut that you're tightening down will tighten down onto that sleeve. This little metal sleeve. So you got two bushings with the body of the car in between those two bushings and that top nut in the trunk. You tighten, 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 and you're going to feel it tighten down onto the bushing, and it will get a little harder, but at the point where that nut hits this metal collar, it's going to get really hard very quickly, and that's where you do your torque, or that's where you know that it's tightened down. If you don't tighten it down onto the metal sleeve here, this can bounce around or can give you knocking noise. So make sure that it's tightened down onto the metal collar. Make sure that when you're tightening down the nut on top, the nut, it doesn't tighten down directly on the sleeve. There is this washer. You see washer, sleeve, washer, and then the nut. The nut tightens down onto the washer because the bushing that sits right between these two washers are kind of big and fat. So obviously, if you just tighten the nut with no washer, it's just going to go right through the bushing. So make sure that washer's there. So when that nut is tightened, I can't do it, it's on the lift, but then you can remove the board. The shock stays the same length. Then the spring stays where it is. You're done. So that's the correct way to set length. Don't go by measurements that somebody else has given you, because all it's going to do is make it so that you could make a mistake. Now, I know there's some trustworthy ones out there, but if you want to do it right, do it this way. All right, thanks for watching. I'm Chris from Redshift. We'll see you next time. Bye.